All right, we're doing pretty good on time here. We're going to move to item 6.2, update on the Umoja Community for Student Success. Am I saying that right?
Correct.
Okay. Vice Chancellor Michalowski.
Yes, I'm very pleased to introduce this item. As we focus on student success, it's important for us to look at the models in our system that actually have shown to work. And as a few of you, I think, were here when our presenters, this is Teresa Aldridge, who's a counselor at Cosumnes River College, and Tom DeWitt, who's professor of English at Chabot College. They've presented previously on the Umoja program, and they're here to give you an update today. The third plan presenter, Donna Calandras, who's both a counselor and a professor at Chaffey College, was unable to come. She got called up for jury duty unexpectedly. So I am going to just quickly turn this over to Teresa and let her start.
Thank you so much. We'd like to first thank and acknowledge Board President Scott Himmelstein, Chancellor Scott, and all of the board members for having us here today. We want to especially thank Vice Chancellor Michalowski and her staff for working with us on making this presentation possible. We also want to acknowledge President Keitha Mills and Vice President Carrie Wood of the Foundation for California Community Colleges for their work with us over the past 5 years while serving as our fiscal sponsor. So they've been absolutely wonderful. We see a lot of new faces on the board today, but we want to provide you a brief background of where we've been and where we are now. So I'd like to turn it over to Tom DeWitt to provide that information.
Hello, and thank you for having us. So we have been here since about 2006. We started once upon a time because all of the monies that have gone into the community college system over the years have really not impacted African American student success, frankly. And so we decided on our own at a conference at Diablo Valley College that we were going to initiate a program, a statewide program, to focus on African American students and other students. And our programs, I want you to know from the beginning, are open, of course. It's the law in California, and our programs are diverse across the state. All of our programs have students of all ethnicities in them. They are focused at the same time on African American students being successful, particularly those students who are coming new into the college. So we grad the students on their way in, and we shepherd them towards transfer. So how we grew is we came together for a year. We pulled together all of the resources and experience and literature that we could from around the state and country about student success for African American students, and out of it we created a statewide model program. And we then went after that and got the blessing of our peers. We had a huge conference at Chabot College. 52 of the colleges came. We presented our program. We asked them to acknowledge us and critique us and add to us, and they did. And then we turned around right after that and came here. And we asked you to acknowledge us, and you did, and the Academic Senate did as well, and the Student Senate did as well. And we've pretty much presented in every forum that there is in the state of California, all the way from the league to the vice presidents of instruction and student services. We're always at the Student Success Conference. We've worked closely with BSI and so on. So very quickly, we now have 25 programs. We're just about to expand to 31. That means 31 colleges that we work with. When we started this, we were at 11. And the only reason we're not at 50 or 60 is lack of funding. We've only had a very minimal amount of funding. This is a 9 to midnight organization, which on the one hand we're proud of because it shows the need and the reality of it, but on the other hand we certainly are seeking funding. In fact, we submitted a grant with FCCC yesterday on time, and with their support to the CEPF grant, California Education Policy Fund. So, and we have this body actually, and the Chancellor, the former Chancellor, helped us write a very compelling proposal about 4 years ago, and that actually helped us get a small amount of funding. So you could see the map at the bottom that we're all over the state of California. I think our most northern school is Napa, and our most southern school is Southwestern, right on the border, and everywhere in between. There are many, you should know, there are many secondary school districts, K-12 school districts who would like to participate with us, but currently our focus is almost exclusively in the California community college system, because that's the bandwidth we have. But we have made nice ties with those groups. Teresa?
I'd like to just remind you again about your endorsement in January of 2008 when we appeared before you. At that time, we came back again in July 2008 with an update, and as Tom said, providing you with that information about how we had become a formal organization. Later that year, we also were endorsed by the Academic Senate by a resolution 3.01, and also by the Student Academic Senate, resolution 7.01, all in that same year. We want to just acknowledge that our consortium members are kind of, right now, they're our lifeline, because we ask colleges to pay a very nominal fee of $1,000 a month to really try to help sustain us. A year, a month. I wish it'd be a month, that'd be nice, a year. Just to let you know, some of the founding consortium members, the chancellors up and down the state were so supportive of us. Dr. Helen Benjamin, part of the Contra Costa Community College District. At the time, she's Chancellor Emeritus, but Susan Coda. He's also Emeritus, but Dr. Jerome Hunter at North Coast Community College District, and Dr. Joel Kinnaman at the Chabot Las Positas Community College District. We wanted to acknowledge them because they were with us from the beginning. They supported us, they believed in us, and we wanted to acknowledge them.
Our consortium is made up of CEOs from our colleges and districts. So we have roughly 25 members of that consortium, and we seek their not only their membership fees, which is our lifeline. It's our Southwest money to go up and down the state, but we also seek their advice on how to work in the system, on the impact of the current budget, for example, on our programs, et cetera. So not only are they just paying members, they're also advisors to us in the direction we take. I want to mention some of the Umoja partners that we have. We're working with LearningWorks, who you know, I'm sure. They just recently gave us a grant which is allowing us to add the 6 new schools to go from 25 to 31. It's also underwriting the attendance this summer at our Summer Learning Institutes, and we've crafted with them a year-long project on best practices that we will be sharing, not only implementing in these Umoja programs, but sharing with the rest of the state. It'll culminate in a paper, and it'll culminate with many presentations after that year of work to the colleges about what works with our students, with our most at-risk students, what works to help them not only gain access but be successful. We are partners, formal partners with UNCF, the United Negro College Fund, with CAAAE, which is a secondary ed focus for high school teachers out of Stanford, with Diego Navarro's group, ACE. We're partners with them. We're also partners with Acceleration in Context. Many of you saw me present on Acceleration in Context about a year ago now. We work intimately with Umoja and vice versa. That organization also continues to grow, partly through the partnership itself. We're also partners with A2MIND, which is an organization, statewide organization, mostly based out of Southern California, which is focused on African American male success. And they have a very wonderful conference every year. And we also are partners with the Leadership Excellence, which is a community-based organization, a very strong community-based organization in Oakland, who do a lot of share our trainings, and as well as with the BSI. We've been involved with the BSI. I've sat on the BSI. Donna Kaloners has sat on the BSI. We've done a lot of presentations and sharing with them. We want to take a minute to have you all read our educational philosophy with us. The way we're going to do this, I'm an English teacher. They call this popcorn reading. So we're going to ask you to read one sentence, and anybody starts, there's no, it's popcorn. You don't know which kernel's going to pop. So you just read. Anybody wants to jump, you'll read, and we'll scroll.
Okay, Umoja is a community of educators and learners committed to the academic success, personal growth, and self-actualization of African American and other students.
The Umoja community seeks to educate the whole student body, mind, and spirit.
Informed by an ethic of love and its vital power, the Umoja community will deliberately engage students as full participants in the construction of knowledge and critical thought.
The Umoja community seeks to help students experience themselves as valuable and worthy of education.
The Umoja community gains meaning through its connection to the African diaspora, African and African American intellectual, cultural, and spiritual gifts and form.
The Umoja community values and practices.
The Umoja community seeks to nurture knowledge of the pride in these treasures.
The learning experience within the Umoja community will provide each individual the opportunity to add their voice and their story to the collective voices and stories of the African diaspora.
African American students are inextricably connected to global struggles for liberation throughout the African diaspora.
In light of this, the Umoja community views education as a liberatory act designed to empower all students to critique, engage, and transform deleterious social and institutional practices locally and globally.
The Umoja community will practice and foster civic engagement so that all its participants integrate learning and service.
Last part.
Likewise, the Umoja community will instill in our students the knowledge and skills necessary to enable them to make positive differences in their lives and the lives of others.
Very nice.
Thank you. We've shared that not only all over our state, but in at least a dozen states around the nation, including at the White House HBCU initiative, including at the Department of Ed to Martha Cantor and her folks. And it's been read in Kentucky just 2 weeks ago and very much inspired their work. So we're not only putting ourselves out there in California, but we're sharing our work across the nation and really helping inspire a lot of folks who are struggling with African American student success.
We gave you 3 documents to refer to. One is a one-page document, a critical resource for students in California community colleges, which tells you a little kind of summary of what we do. Again, our partnerships, provides that kind of information. A newsletter, our most recent newsletter, that kind of tells you what kind of activities we've been doing, and then an alignment with the Student Success Task Force recommendations, which we will be going through in more detail. So our mission statement, which is a very powerful statement as well. Thank you so much to President Hammelstein for pronouncing us correctly. It is Umoja, and he did pronounce that correctly. It's a Kiswahili word meaning unity. Umoja is a critical community and critical resource dedicated to enhancing the cultural and educational experiences of African American and other students. We believe that when the voices and histories of our students are deliberately and intentionally recognized, the opportunity for self-efficacy emerges and a foundation is formed for academic success. Umoja actively serves and promotes student success for all students through our curriculum and pedagogy responsive to the legacy of the African and African American diasporas. What you see on this particular slide is information about some of our Umoja programs. This information represents data that was gathered from these programs. It is not an apples to apples comparison in that some of the courses in the programs are maybe basic skills English or basic skills math. Also, some programs have guidance courses in them. So what it shows you is course success for students taking the courses in those various programs. But what you will see is that for students who are in those programs, they all have higher success rates than non-Umoja students in those programs. We are delighted to let you know that we have worked closely with the Chancellor's Office and have created a new special data element that will be implemented starting this summer that will allow us to gather data from all of the schools and be able to capture this information. It's so long awaited, and we want to thank Myrna and Patrick Perry for their great assistance on making that happen. Data is so important in our field.
Briefly, I'll mention that we're aligned with about 3/4 of the task force recommendations. Not only are we aligned, we're out in front of them. So Umoja is positioned very nicely to be a model for how to implement. How to implement those recommendations, as you all know, is challenging. And Umoja has been doing work along the lines of those recommendations for now 5 and 6 years, and has not only a track record, but very fresh and ripe and useful examples. And that's what we need in the state right now, is we need useful examples of implementation. Since we work closely both with LearningWorks, BSI folks, and you all, we're very happy to share that. I don't need to run down all the ones, that it would take too long, but you could see we gave you a sheet that describes our alignment with those task force recommendations, and we've also shared with several college presidents and folks out there on the ground who are struggling about how am I going to implement this. We've sat with them in their offices and talked about ideas that are coming out of Umoja as exemplary of the implementation. So I was just recently, 2 weeks ago, in the president of College of Marin, having exactly that conversation. Okay.
And so now we'd like to finally tell you about a very excited venture that we have started, and that's with creating transfer agreements with historically black colleges and universities. If you're not familiar with historically black colleges, they are land-grant institutions similar to our universities here in California. Most of them were established after the Civil War. However, there were a few that were established before the Civil War. Currently, there are 105 HBCUs nationwide. The largest numbers are found in Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and North and South Carolina. However, they are all over the state, the nation. In general, we get about 65% of all African American physicians are graduates of HBCUs. 50% of our engineers, African American engineers, come from HBCUs, and 35% of our African American lawyers graduate from HBCUs. So why are we creating this partnership with HBCUs and actually encouraging our students to go out of state? I don't have to tell you about the number of articles that are in the paper almost on a daily basis that talks about how our institutions are just not able to move our students to and through the university. And so what we've done is we've created a partnership through UNCF. They're a 38-member organization with the HBCUs. We've actually signed an MOU with them that is allowing us access to these HBCUs and allows us to kind of have dialogue, open up conversation with them so that we can create these transfer agreements. So how does it work? The way it works is that individual colleges, so this isn't a statewide transfer agreement. This is individual colleges have the opportunity to develop a transfer agreement with a number of HBCUs. And so this example you see on the board is there's 10 or so transfer agreements that have been formally signed by, this happens to be an example at El Camino College. And what this allows students to do is it allows them to transfer with as few as 15 units or as many as 30 units. As we know, students kind of get stuck in our system. They don't move on. This allows them to, you know, if you want to leave after a semester, you can go. If you want to leave after a year, you can go. But we have created that opportunity for them. You'll also note on this slide, even though it's a little fuzzy, that 3 of these schools accept IGETC. What this allows, what we felt with that partnership was students can complete our general education pattern and go to those institutions ready to go, lower division complete. We are talking with all of them about accepting our IGETC as the general education pattern for them. So we're very excited about that. To date, we have 4 Umoja programs that have signed 56 agreements with these institutions, and 25 students have already been accepted, and more are we're calling them pre-transfer because they're still working on the units in order to meet the agreement. So we are very, very excited about this partnership with the historically black colleges. And then, of course, we have to show you our pictures of some of the graduates of the students who have transferred and graduated from some of those institutions. And finally, questions and answers from you.
Thank you for the presentation. Board members, any comments and/or questions? Member McDougall.
Yeah, just a general comment. First, I'm very pleased to hear that you're working with Patrick Perry to get the data in the OX system so that we really can look comprehensively at the impact. Because this, the performance of Afro-American students obviously is something that we're all concerned about and want to support anything that will enhance that success. But it's critical that we evaluate through that source system that shows the progress that's being made. So I'm very pleased to hear you state that. As I try to understand more specifically the program, it seems to me that there are 2 fundamental cores. C-O-R-E-S. I apologize if that wasn't clear. One is the development of the transfer agreement with the historical black colleges and universities, which seems to be a very good service. And then a general, if you will, raising of consciousness, providing of support that is promoted throughout the college. And then there seems to be a 3rd program component, which is illustrated on your research material, where you talk about specific college-based programs, for example, at Chabot and Haywood, and the other one at El Camino. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else other than those 3 areas that represents, if you will, the program and the specific methodology that you intend to influence the figures on student success? Are there any other aspects to it?
We're a professional development organization, so we train faculty year-round. and do site visits and follow-throughs, and we have a very regular and consistent pattern of that. And we train faculty inside of Umoja programs, and what an Umoja program looks like from one campus to the next can vary. It depends on what's happening locally, depends on their population of students. Over half of the programs are learning community focused. Basic skills, English and/or math, sometimes both. Always a guidance counseling class, that's a requirement. And sometimes also a history course, African American history, or maybe a music course, depending on the faculty on the ground. But there's that intensive focus on the basic skills students at their entry point. And there's also in every single instance a pathway to those transfer courses, English 1A and stats, that is identified very clearly for the students, and they're put on that pathway at the second they enter the college. And the Umoja program offers classes that moves them either into transfer level or moves them toward transfer level. And our data does show that we're much more successful with African American students inside the program than not inside the program. So that's the two.
Is that data through the system?
So the system data, we have spent like several hundred hours asking the schools for data, including having Myrna on the phone with them. So, and that was and it's hard because the IR offices are inundated. You get little cuts of data that are like from 4 years ago, and so on. We have gotten the consistent data that we have gotten that's comprehensive is represented to you on that slide. Thank goodness Myrna and Patrick Perry's office built a special POPs database, and that just got piloted last year. We worked with them for over a year ourselves, just on our component and on that database. I would like to think we inspired it a little bit, but we visited the Chancellor's office many times, and now we're part of it, the Umoja programs. So all of our programs are required to submit the data for their students so that we can track them comprehensively. And it's a very deep, deep database. I mean, Patrick could speak on it if he wants to, but there's millions of data elements in it. So I don't know if I'm using the right language.
If I can just clarify, so we now have an identifier for a student who is in the Umoja program, which means that we can then look at everything there is in the MIS system about that student. And we've added foster youth, veterans, and some other categories at the same time in this, the data that we'll be rolling out this summer on a voluntary basis and then become mandatory next year.
Yeah.
Member Izumi, then Chancellor Scott, then Member Belinsky.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your continuing success. It's always great to have Umoja to come over here to give us updates as to how the program is going. I know it's a lot of hard work and a lot of challenges to overcome, but it's always terrific to see the progress that the program is making. I just want to particularly commend you about the handout you gave us on the alignment with the Student Success Task Force recommendations. I think you're very correct in saying that as the task force recommendations go forward, what we need are examples. And I think that this is really excellent for those of us on the board to be able to go out and talk about specific examples of how different organizations are dealing with the recommendations of the task force. So I want to compliment you on that, and I would really appreciate updates about your continuing work with the different recommendations to help us as we go out and talk to the community.
Okay.
Sure.
Great.
Chancellor Scott.
Well, I too am, of course, encouraged by the way in which you point out Umoja was a forerunner to many of the recommendations that came out of the Student Success Task Force. And frankly, we would like to use you as a model for how to succeed. I once heard a presentation by you and Diego Navarro that I was very impressed with about acceleration. And I know you're active in that as well as in Umoja. In fact, you probably use acceleration a great deal in the Umoja program.
Correct.
And we do have limited time, but could you give a little synopsis of of what acceleration is and basic skills and why you think it's successful, and how successful have we been in implementing it, system-wide, and what are the barriers to implementing it? I know that's a big order, so tell us in 5 minutes or less.
Give me the 3-minute version.
Yeah, the 3-minute version, but I was very impressed by your conversations about acceleration, and I know you're one of the authorities in that field.
So you're right that acceleration is inside of many Umoja programs, and what it is, and it's not one thing, but what comes into question as the acceleration discussion comes onto a campus is often the sequence of classes and basic skills that students are taking, and how successful students are at making it through those sequence of classes and basic skills to transfer at 3 levels, 4 levels, 8 classes, 6 classes. The other thing that comes, and so that gets raised, is that serving students, are they making it? What is your curriculum design that you have currently? Where did that come from? Sometimes we find out it came from the 70s, and it hasn't been updated since then. And the other thing, and this is the other major piece of it, is what are the assumptions about how adults learn literacy and numeracy skills that are built into your curriculum? What is the paradigm that you're working under about how these basic skills are acquired? And many times those assumptions get raised and challenged, and what it does is it sort of blows open a big discussion around pedagogy, practice, and curriculum design. And that's happening in many, many, many institutions in the state, including inside of many Umoja schools. And then the many, meaning over half of the institutions in the state are currently either talking about, implementing, creating accelerated expressions in their and for acceleration in context, that means accelerated counseling, accelerated ESL, accelerated math, and English. So it cuts across all those areas. It always brings into question, how are we structured? How are we engaging students? Where are they getting stuck? And what are our own sort of barriers or assumptions that are keeping our curriculum or our programming the same as it's been for 20 and 30 years? One of the big challenges at the schools, and I'll just mention this in my 2 minutes and 30 seconds in here, is that it's happening so quickly. There's pressure on all schools. Economically, they're having to cut their schedule, and they're feeling pressure in ESL. They're feeling pressure all across particularly their basic skills courses to reduce, and it's happening very quickly and very aggressively, and that's a challenge. On the one hand, it means people are acting and stepping up. On the other hand, it's causing reaction sometimes. But I would say, I want you guys to have this image that, first of all, that faculty have incredible intentions. They want to be successful. They deeply want to be successful. You hear stories about this curmudgeon or that curmudgeon. That's the rarity. 99.9%, 100%, they're there to do well, and that they are doing incredible work on the ground in the context of learning communities like Umoja, and in the context of rethinking and re-expressing their pedagogy and their curriculum. And not just a few, hundreds of faculty are doing that in California. So I hope you guys can close your eyes and picture, as you picture your colleges, people in departments all around the state doing that kind of work right now as we speak. And it's such new work that there's not a lot of data yet that has long shelf life.
And what is the, do you have any comparisons of the success of acceleration compared to the traditional multi-level basic skills?
The data is emerging all the time, and certainly some of the colleges do have some long-standing data, and it shows success. And what I mean by it's emerging is many of these accelerated expressions are brand spanking new. They've been around for a year, or half a year, or maybe 2 years. And so folks are still wanting to, they're wanting to get enough data that they feel comfortable saying that this is working. And there's not one model, right? So acceleration has many different expressions to it. One thing it has in common, though, is that it's looking at where students are falling off and where they're getting stuck, and it's looking at radical curricular change. So, but there's a data set in Patrick Perry's office that's starting to track accelerated curriculum right now. It's been built in just recently.
Last comment, Member Belinsky.
I just wanted to say thank you to my colleagues, Teresa and Tom. I've known both of you for a while, especially Teresa, so thank you for being here and for updating the system about what's going on. I'd like to just kind of make a few comments because this is very important to me as I see it in our own district and the value of learning communities. Because what many of our students say is it gave me a home, a place to belong, a place to get engaged. When I was just taking a class and I didn't know anybody and I didn't know what to do to the next one, that sense of community and caring was what inspired me to stay with it and to get my education. And I think that that's very important. But the other thing, and I don't know, you talked about it, but just to highlight it again, is faculty engagement. Because it provides an opportunity for faculty to talk to one another and build that community of faculty who then share ideas and get inspired by one another. And the other thing that I think that, so that there's networking, there's these faculty inquiry groups being created. But the other thing I think that's really significant for me is that it connects instructional services with student services, and we don't always do that too well. We don't always get together where the faculty on the instructional services and the faculty on the student services. So thank you, I mean, and to keep up the good work and to keep inspiring Adelante and APAS and all the other learning communities that are becoming important, are important.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.